Welcome to Media and Monuments podcast, presented by Women in Film and Video in Washington, D.C. Media and Monuments is conversations featuring industry pros speaking on a wide range of topics of interest to media makers.
Welcome to Media and Monuments. I'm your host, Sandra Abrams. While just making a film is a passion project and years of work, getting your movie into a film festival can be nothing short of a miracle. Film festivals offer directors, screenwriters, and producers an opportunity to showcase their work, get noticed by distributors and film critics, and expand their network. In some cases, festivals have become a ticket to Hollywood, especially for independent media makers. For this deep dive, we'll talk to Jon Gann, who's considered a guru of all things to do with film festivals, and Heather Waters, the founder and producer of the Richmond International Film Festival, or RIFF. Heather Waters is a media maker who wears many hats. She's the founder and producer of the Richmond International Film Festival, known as RIFF, or RIFF, one of the largest competitive film festivals in the Mid-Atlantic region. She's also the director of the RIFF Arts Institute, known as RAI. It is a nonprofit organization that seeks to foster development and promotion of artists, filmmakers, musicians, and writers. Heather is the past president of the Virginia Production Alliance, and she's also the co-owner of the Creative World Awards. Plus, Heather is also, in her spare time, a writer, director, and producer of media projects. Welcome, Heather.
Thank you, Sandra. Thank you for that lovely introduction.
Well, I wanted to ask you, you grew up in Richmond. You moved to LA, then to Atlanta. What was it about Richmond that you said, yes, this is home, and I'm going to start a film festival?
A crazy idea, right? I look back on it now, and really I had no intention whatsoever in starting a film festival, but I have grown up in the entertainment industry since I was a young girl, actually, and started out for many years on the performance side and did the whole route. Grew up in Nashville, music, film, the whole works, and did Atlanta a couple of times in between, went to Los Angeles, and I had moved to Atlanta and was thinking about relocating back to California, and happened to be introduced to Richmond, Virginia by a guy I was dating, which he loves to claim credit for this. But he was wonderful. I came here and really saw so many incredible things happening in this city and really across the state of Virginia. We would go to festivals and lectures, and I would have conversations with a lot of creatives in a lot of those events that I would attend. And being a promoter of other artists when I'm not creating myself, those conversations would tend to go like, what are you doing, with your music, or what are you doing with your film? This is incredible. Are you on the festival circuit, and so on and so forth? And oftentimes the answer to that question was almost like seeing deer in headlights, like, well, I don't know, we're not. What do we do next? And so I was really inspired by the creativity that I saw, and also at the same time a need for filmmakers across the state to have more platforms that would really help them know what the next steps are. Once you've created your project or written that script, what do you do next? And at the time, while we had some incredible festivals in Richmond, we didn't necessarily have one that was a competitive festival, submission-based. And those are really meant to be career launchers, for the filmmakers and writers. And so I said, okay, well, let's get this started. And I moved here and I think started the festival 3 weeks later. So it was very quick. Saw that need, turned around, created it, and now here we are 11 years later.
Well, I did read you started the festival in 2011. Now, one of the things I found interesting was that you have the word international. Was that some type of fortuitous thinking here on doing it? Like, a lot of people would have just said the Richmond Film Festival.
it was very intentional. You know, when I first moved to town, it had all these incredible creative things about the city. But one thing that I came across is it seemed to be a little closed off. And I felt the need to bring something international to really expose Richmond and the Commonwealth, you know, to different cultures and communities and artists from around the globe. At the same time, I saw it as a way to show off our beautiful state, increase tourism, build our brick and mortar companies, the production community, our talented crew that's across the state, also give them more opportunities. And so expanding and broadening, casting that net wide was very intentional.
Well, speaking of casting that net wide, how do you determine the films that are going to go into your festival? Is it, all right, this year the theme is this, or this year we have this panel speaking, or, you know, these group of readers, and they're saying we're seeing a lot of this happening. What goes into determining those films?
You know, all festivals, I think, do that a little differently. One of the things that I knew I really wanted to do at RIFF right out of the gate was to make it a very fair process and to not play politics or favorites as far as who gets in and who doesn't. So at RIFF, everything is submission based. We use Film Freeway. Back in the day, it was Without a Box, and now it's Film Freeway. So all of the films, or at least 99% of them, occasionally will curate and do like a studio or a pre-release, that kind of thing. But everything else is submission based. They go through judging on a set criteria that we have based on our own internal scorecard. And the preliminary judges do the first rounds of judging. And so it could be a brand new filmmaker going side by side with, you know, a more seasoned award-winning filmmaker, but everybody gets equal playing field when it comes to RIFF. That's how we start the process. Sometimes in the end, it can be a little heavier weighted towards some of the more experienced filmmakers. I mean, we've got Golden Globe award winners, Oscar award winners, and then we have first-time filmmakers and then everything in between. So what we'll do at the end, once the preliminary judging has finished, is I'll kind of come into the mix and go through. But other than that, everything has a judging process that we stick to. So they're judged on merit, you know, and that includes, you know, production quality, acting, the writing, and many other things that go into making a great film. At the end is when we determine what our theme is going to be. So we like to do that as a very organic process at RIFF. And oftentimes, it's me kind of leading that particular component, because I'll look and see if there's a particular thread or a theme already running through the program. Sometimes I find even at Creative World Awards with our writers, you'll find kind of a common universal theme that people are touching on in the material. And then we look to go, okay, how's that relevant to Richmond? How's it relevant to Virginia? How's it relevant to what's going on in the world right now? And from there, we select a theme that doesn't necessarily represent all of the films, and it definitely doesn't. The theme really does is celebrate the heart of the creativity and the spirit running through the festival, through the projects at that time. And then we'll pick out a few events during festival week that highlight that theme.
One of the things I read was last year you had about 160 films from countries around the world, but you also had the festival in September of last year. And now here it is, June, you're going to be doing that. Sounds like an awful quick turnaround. How do you do that?
You know, I'm asking myself that same question, Sandra. You know, we have been really impacted by the pandemic. And so our normal festival dates are the last week in April. And because of the pandemic the last couple of years, like many other festivals around the world, we kept having to postpone the festival. And so then we ended up going both of those years, the last 2 years, to September in order to be able to do the festival. And then last year, we had to plan 2 festivals at once. So while we were doing the 10th year anniversary, planning for that last September, we were already open for submissions for this year's. And it's because we had a shorter time period. Usually the festival itself takes a full year of planning, but we're operating on like 9-10 months. So it's been really intense, we'll say that. But normally it is in late April. And so this is, one more year. And in 2023, we should be back to our late April dates and back on schedule.
One of the things that you have as part of your festival is a screenwriters competition and the Creative World Awards. And I wanted to know if you could expand on that a little bit, because most people are submitting films. This is just focused on screenwriters. How did you start this award and how this came about?
I'm so passionate about writers. I mean, as we all know, every great film begins with, a compelling story. And so you can't really get a film off the ground without it. And over the years and working in the industry, I really came to just love working with writers. And so Creative World Awards, which is my other company, that's going on 16 years old. We develop writers in that company. And so it's an international competition. And then we will oftentimes work with them beyond the competition to give them development notes, to get their scripts exactly where they need to be in order to pitch them to executives or producers. And it's tough being a writer. There's not a lot of platforms that exist that allow filmmakers to be in the same room with the writers and writers to be in the same room with the filmmakers. And so when I'm thinking about the festival, I'm thinking about how can we make this full circle and create a win for all of these creatives. So it's almost essentially like one-stop shopping. The same goes for the music edition that we added a few years ago to the film festival side. Every great film or filmmaker is looking for that perfect title song or pieces of songs that can make certain scenes come to life. And yet there's not a lot of platforms for musicians to connect with filmmakers. So it's the same intent behind helping create platforms to bring these groups of creatives together to hopefully forge new working relationships.
It sounds like you not only just put it all together, but you're also saying, and here's a writer I can introduce you to, and here's a music person I can introduce you to.
Absolutely. To me, that's the most fun part about what I do. One is, of course, entertaining people, in front of the silver screen. The other is to create meaningful conversations. A lot of these films just are on topics that create that chatter, in the audience, and people are often talking about them through the evening after they've seen the film. And it's the same way with our writers and the musicians. We want to be able to bring them into the mix and create those platforms to, help them build on their relationships and hopefully ones that lead to work.
I know it sounds great. It sounds like a lot of fun, but it's also a lot of work. Tell me, how do you go about getting the sponsors?
In the early days, it was extremely tough, and rightfully so. You have to, as a festival, sort of earn your stripes and gain the respect of companies and local organizations that are able to align with your vision and believe in what you're trying to do. So it was tough in the early years. We are fortunate and blessed now where we have those relationships established from people that have been with us since the beginning. And each year they've graciously upped, in many cases, their sponsorship amount, which we are very much dependent upon in order to be able to operate year round. But it's an ongoing challenge too, because there's so many expenses that go into a festival, and it really is a labor of love in many regards. It's not a big money maker, It's about creating and building on those relationships with your sponsors. And we just continue to try and find new sponsors every year that can join in supporting us and what we're doing, at RIFF. And meanwhile, the ones that we have had on board, we love to continue to build on those relationships. But it's definitely a very important part of making a film festival run year round.
So what about this year? How many films do you have in there? How many musicians are you showcasing this year? And what's going on? Is there going to be an award being given out, the Creative World Award being given out for the screenwriter? Is that what also is happening during the festival?
Well, the screenwriting competition at RIFF is actually separate from Creative World Awards. You'll find some writers from CWA definitely get involved in RIFF too, because it's wonderful to have that physical event. Sort of is the pinnacle, the end of the week every year at the Red Carpet Awards at the Bird Theater is when we do the grand jury awards. That takes place on the Sunday evening to close out festival week. And we give a ton of awards at RIFF. Some are standard awards like Best of in their category, whether that's narrative feature, a doc feature, the narrative short, doc shorts, experimentals, and so forth. And then for the writers, we do, different genre awards and then the overall grand jury award winner of the year. And then additionally, we do individual merit awards. So those are on the writing, the genre side. On film, it's things like best directing, best score, best original screenplay, best actor, actress, and so forth. The last thing that we do, and I think it's one thing that has always drawn a lot of wonderful documentaries for the most part to RIFF, is we have outstanding merit awards for particular projects that are going above and beyond to create impact globally or within a certain field, whether it be human trafficking or lots of different topics that kind of stand out to us from year to year that are also honored at the Red Carpet Awards that close out festival week.
All right, you keep talking about red carpet. So I want to hear, do you have the big guests coming to the red carpet? What designer clothes are people wearing? Tell us about this red carpet.
Yes. So it's funny. I just got a call this morning from somebody who is planning all of their outfits and literally calling me from a boutique asking me that very thing. It's a big deal. We do several red carpeted events during the week. Opening night is a red carpeted event on Tuesday, June 7th. And then closing night is always the red carpet, which goes right into the red carpet awards of the year. And then we have a handful of others scattered in the middle of the week. But, at those events, we love for people to get dressed up. It's usually upscale, chic, casual, we'll say up to black tie. And we have several special guests that are coming in this year. They're still actually being added day by day. But for opening night and closing night, we've got some special guests coming in from the UK and Los Angeles that are around the film Song for Hope, which is a beautiful, actually, music documentary, which is new for us this year to lead out with that. But we're going to have a special music performance open the film premiere. So that'll be a very special night. Closing night, we also have the same special guest coming in from as far away as Australia. Nadia Tass, who's a brilliant Australian director, will also be here for Oleg. Few other people I can't mention just yet because they're not 100% confirmed, and I don't want to get in trouble. Some of them are celebrities.
Who are we going to tell? We're just, the Media and Monuments podcast. Come on.
I would love to get their names out there in the press because people will really get excited. But of course, I have to wait for the PR, their publicist, to give us the sign off. But some really exciting names, both on the film director side and actors. And then musician side, we've got some bands. One band's coming in from Belgium, a blues player, the Blues Messenger, which is really cool. Another one, Famo, who's a hip hop artist coming in from Germany. And of course, others from all over the country that'll be visiting bands. On the filmmaker side, we have 171 films this year, which is the biggest ever festival to date. And believe it or not, we have another 30 on a wait list that we were really dying to get in, but we just don't have room. So it's going to be a really packed year at both Bowtie Cinemas and the Bird Theater. And then around town, we have 10 other venues going on from morning till night all over the city.
So tell us about the size of your team, because it sounds like it takes a lot of people to put on a film festival. And if you have over 171 films and you've got all these different venues going on around Richmond, what's the size of your team?
Our staff is very small and consists of myself and an assistant and one other part-timer, which is crazy. I don't usually like telling people that because they really think that we're crazy. So that's year-round carrying a lot of the heavy lifting. And we've kind of gotten it down to a science. We know the drill now and what needs to happen when at each sort of leg monthly throughout the year. And as we get closer to the festival, we then bring on our core team. And our core team is instrumental in helping us do things like outreach, working with local organizations to spread the word and create awareness around the films and the bands. Of course, all of our local partners jump in with us to help cross-promote and get the word out. And then some of the volunteers come in the month before and will assist in things like week of logistics. So we'll train them from year to year. A lot of people repeat. They come back year after year on the volunteer team. It's gotten to be a large festival, so we are always in need of great volunteers. And it's actually it's a wonderful opportunity. A lot of the volunteers end up getting some work out of it, and it's fun for them because they meet new people and develop relationships, and we love that. But we're always in need of great volunteers because at this point, we are still heavily dependent upon that. Not so much in the core part of the planning year round and what we execute on that end, but certainly as we get closer to our festival dates. So if anybody out there listening is interested in volunteering, please do reach out to us. We would love to chat with you.
I wanted to ask you about, is there any special moments? So you've been doing this probably for almost a dozen years now. Do you have any particular outstanding special moments that you want to share, whether it was about a film, was it about a special guest that you had?
Well, oh gosh, there are so many lovely ones. I think there's a couple that come to mind right away. One was the governor's. One year we had Governor Terry McAuliffe, who was our Pioneer Award recipient for all of the amazing work that he has done through the years with the military and kind of helping them. They went at sort of combating homelessness in the state of Virginia, and McAuliffe was doing a lot of cool initiatives to help with that. And a part of that included folks who had come out of the military, helping expose them to film, because oftentimes they're looking to pick up a new career and they don't have experience in film. So he got the Pioneer Award one year, and Governor Northam was the one who gave Governor McAuliffe, the Pioneer Award at the red carpets at the festival that year. That was special, really, really cool. The other thing that comes to mind is Danny Glover. You know, he was our Legacy Award recipient 3 or 4 years ago. And what a lovely human being he was. It was just a treat. We had a film of his, Buckout Road, that was in the festival. You never know how, the stars are going to be when they actually get to the festival on site. And he was just not only one of the most articulate human beings I've ever met, and kind, because he does a lot of humanitarian work, but just a joy to be around. So that was special. I'm actually looking at a picture right right here that one of my staff snapped of me and Danny Glover. So I think of him often as I see this picture. But there are so many moments like that throughout the last 10 or 11 years that really come to mind often. A lot of our panels that we do and creating awareness around some of the topics that are in our films are particularly impactful, and in some cases have led to policy changes, or at least been a part of that process on things across the state that, and even country, U.S., that need to be looked at closer. But those are just a few examples of some of the ones that come to mind right away.
So from an idea to 3 weeks later to now you're showing films that have policy impact. That's quite a journey.
Yes. It feels, I think if he would have told me, hey, Heather, go out and do this from day one, I might have gotten a little overwhelmed and said, I don't know who you're talking to. That won't be me. But it really has felt like such an organic process. And with each expansion that we've done from year to year in a lot of those different areas, it just seemed like the natural next step and fit. And oftentimes I felt the need. I'm always looking at that. And that part of it for me feels like it's where my passion and purpose lies. And it really is probably the thing that keeps me going year to year. Because as many other festival directors will tell you, it is truly quite a feat to put them on. And so when you're passionate about those things and you see the payoff and see how it's impacting not just your local artist community, but also other businesses, your local brick and mortars, sometimes policy changes, it sends goosebumps up and down your spine. It's really inspiring. And I feel grateful to be able to do what I do and at the festival from year to year.
Heather, you're inspiring all of that. So I thank you, Heather, for sharing your insights and into starting and running this film festival. The Richmond International Film Festival starts June 7th. To learn more, to get tickets, or even volunteer, go to www.rvafilmfestival.com.
Thank you so much, Sandra.
Jon Gann is a native Washingtonian and runs Real Plan, a DC-based film festival business. He's also the founder of DC Shorts, a nonprofit organization that seeks to promote short filmmaking, and the creator of DC Shorts Film Festival. Jon is the director of several award-winning films, including the 2021 documentary, Miss Alma Thomas, A Life in Color. She became the first African-American woman to have a solo show at New York's Whitney Museum of American Art. He's also the author of the 2015 book, So You Want to Start a Film Festival, Conversations with Top Festival Creators. He's considered a guru of all things film festivals. Welcome to Media and Monuments, Jon.
Thank you for having me, Sandra. Excited to be here.
Well, you've written a book about film festivals. It seems that every city and little municipality has started a film festival. Why?
So back in the 90s, it seemed to be a big economic development tool for smaller and mid-sized cities. They saw the success of Sundance and the beginning of Tribeca and some of these festivals that had been around for a long time that were sort of established to the industry and thought that they could, drive some economic engine towards their downtown areas by creating film festivals. And that was the first wave. Then in about 2000 or so, the second wave started. And that's when people who just love film decided, you know what? The local film festival isn't addressing my needs or not showing the types of films I think my friends and I want to see. And that's when we had the second boom of film festivals. Unfortunately, I think now there's probably too many festivals, especially in big cities. I know like in Washington, D.C., we have 3 independent film festivals. There was one, and then 2 others started because they didn't like the one that was there. And as opposed to trying to join that organization and trying to change it internally, they just decided to do something else. And we see a lot of that around the country. And I'm thinking that with COVID and the lockdown and the way we are changing the way we're consuming media, some of those festivals aren't going to survive this, which is fine, actually. I think that there's too many out there as it is, which sort of dilutes what the purpose of a festival is, which is to at least in my eyes, it's to expose audiences to works they're never going to see any other way, that especially films that will never find streaming distribution or theatrical distribution. And it's a way for filmmakers to connect with audiences, to learn about audiences and what they're actually watching when they're watching their film.
So you see consolidation in the future for these film festivals?
I do. And I'm hoping, it's one of the things I've been sort of trumpeting for the past 2 years, is to tell festivals maybe it's time to start working with each other to try and bring these together. And I think it will make everyone stronger in the end.
Well, that's what we want. Everybody to get their message out and get their film or their media project out there.
Yep.
What should people know when they're considering entering a film festival?
Well, okay, so the first thing is, I have this axiom, and there's a festival for every film, but your film is not for every festival. And you have to really understand what that means. And what that means is, I know you think your film is for everybody, but it's not. And not all film festivals are for everybody. When you go to a festival website and you look at the photos of people who are at parties, they're very different for different film festivals, even within the same city. They each target a specific audience. And you need to understand who your film is for and who would go to see it in a theater, in a festival setting, especially now, which, you know, the Venn diagram of those who are COVID concerned and those who would go to a film festival is pretty much the same circle. You have to really understand who the audience for your film is, and then you can start coming up with a strategy for submitting to a festival. I meet way too many filmmakers who call me too late in the process and say, well, I've gone to Film Freeway and I submitted to 150 festivals. What do you think my chances are? And I said, well, you just wasted a lot of money, because instead of maybe, just sending out willy-nilly to 150 festivals, if you had done the research and found the 20 or 30 that actually fit your film and the audiences who would probably pay to see it, then you'd probably be down, to 20 or 30 festivals, and you would save a lot of money. Your success record would probably be much higher. There's a lot of research that needs to be done. And I know that by the time filmmakers get to the festival part of their filmmaking journey, they're tired, they're run out of money. I don't understand why I can't just apply to 50 of them and hope to get into all 50 of them. It doesn't work like that. And you really need to do the research. And that research is much more than going to Film Freeway. I mean, the copy on Film Freeway is all provided by the film festivals. Of course, they're all going to smell like roses. It's about going to each individual website and really looking at the catalogs of the films they've programmed in the past. Is your film anything like those films? If so, you probably have a good chance. If not, then you don't have a good chance, because the programmers, what they're trying to program for and program to, doesn't necessarily change every year. So if you are not kind of in line with what they're thinking, then you don't have a really good chance. So there's a lot of research, and a lot of that research is to watch other films. And if you're not watching other people's films, then you really don't understand how the festival circuit works, and you can't expect success.
You talked about doing a lot of research. Is there some insight into when that research should start?
Well, yeah, it should start when you put pen to paper to write your script. I mean, when you write your script, you should know who your audience is. There's no such thing as a film for everyone. The Wizard of Oz is not for everyone, right? I mean, it's for an audience. It's for a specific audience. It's mostly for, that was, for kids, it's kind of grown up to be campy and other stuff. But, in general, every film has a specific audience, and you need to understand that going in. This idea that my film is for everyone is a crock, and it will lead to ultimate failure.
Well, one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you was that you had sat on panels for the selection process.
Yeah, I've sat on lots of panels and lots of juries, yes.
So sitting on a jury, sitting on a panel, sitting on a jury, what is that experience like?
When you're on a selection committee, you're trying to find works that are unique, works that are different, but more importantly, you're trying to find works that work with one another. I tell filmmakers, festivals don't program the best films. We program the best films that are first available to us, that are a fit for our audience, that are sometimes a stretch for our audience. And it's the type of thing as a programmer we need our audience to stretch to see, that play well with each other, because you can't have films that compete with each other, especially shorts on a block. They have to work with one another, that are the right length for the story you're trying to tell, are made by nice filmmakers. I mean, if you're a jerk, and you present yourself to a festival as a jerk, you're not going to get into a festival because no one wants to deal with you. There's a lot of other factors, but there's a lot to consider. And sometimes we don't take the best films. Sometimes the films that score a 98 or 99 don't get programmed because maybe it's a 20-minute version of a Runaway Bride story. When I have 3 other versions, a 3-minute animated and a 7-minute comedy, I can show my audience one Runaway Bride story a year. Which is it going to be? And I need to think about the amount of screen time I have, and then the number of films I want to show, and again, who my audience is. So sometimes the best films don't make it. Sometimes it's the films that fit in with the programming. And that's an important thing to know too. If you have a film and you understand how it fits into programming because it's been programmed at other festivals, et cetera, that gives you a leg up. You can go back to other festivals you're submitting to and say, hey, by the way, I know that like 3 other filmmakers I've shown with in the past are coming to you with their films too. Did you know that like the 5 of us together make a really great show and that we know each other really well? And if one of us can't be at the festival, the others can speak about their, my film. That's a big selling point to a festival because it's hard to travel filmmakers in. Most festivals can't afford to do a lot of it, especially now with COVID restrictions. And so I think that whatever you can do to sell your film to a festival to make it easy for them to program is huge.
So not only you're doing the research to make sure that that festival is right for you, but you're also saying do the marketing aspect and say, here's your marketing or selling points.
Right. Well, so as a festival, you know the 3 or 4 films that you can sell to the media, right? You know that there's very limited media coverage anymore anyway, right? And you know the 3 or 4 that are going to, the Washington Post or whatever the big newspaper in that town is going to pick up. And so they're, the other 150 films in a festival, they're asking the filmmakers to do that marketing, and you have to know how to do that marketing. And it means you're going to have to spend some time figuring out what's the best social to get people to that audience, because the festival is going to do what they can, right? And they can do only so much, right? They're not omnipotent. They're not all marketing geniuses. And so they're expecting you to do some of that work. And that's part of the partnership. I mean, most filmmakers go to festivals or put their films in festivals because it's for the most part, the only way they're going to get distribution. And it's the way that they're going to connect with audiences. Well, if you want to connect with audiences, you got to have butts and seats or eyes on a screen to watch it when it's streaming. And you're going to have to make that happen because the festival's only going to do so much. And so there's a lot of work to your film that's way past final cut. And I think that's where a lot of filmmakers get frustrated because they're like, well, I'm done. My mother says it's genius, therefore it's going to play everywhere. And then they start sending it out to inappropriate festivals and get rejected and realize it's not playing everywhere. And what have I done? And just a simple switch in how you're marketing your film and reaching out with it makes a huge difference.
Let's say I'm the first time filmmaker and I've got my film finally into a film festival. What do I need to do to have a successful experience? And you're saying it was the research, it's the marketing, and then now you're at the film festival. What is it that you need to do to make sure that's successful?
You need to be present. You can't be a wallflower. You need to go out there and you need to meet people. I mean, before your screening, don't just talk to your friends, like walk the aisles and say, hey, thank you for coming to the festival. By the way, my film is like the 3rd one showing. I hope you really enjoy it. That goes a long way, especially if there's an audience ballot, because people want to vote for things that they know someone. But go and talk to filmmakers and talk to audiences. I always tell filmmakers, when your film is on screen, don't watch the screen. You've seen your film. Turn around and look at the audience and see how they're reacting to your film. Because maybe they're laughing at the stuff you didn't think was funny, or they're really serious during what you thought was the comedy part, or maybe they have a different reaction from you on different scenes. And it's really important to understand how audiences are perceiving what you're writing, what you're directing, what you're acting in, because that will help you in your future projects, much more than you looking at that screen and saying to yourself, look at the great job I did.
That's fantastic advice for people to take those steps as opposed to watching their film, because as you said, they've already seen it. They know where every line is. So why do that? That's great. I wanted to ask you, you started the DC Short Film Festival. What was the big challenges that you found when you first started?
Well, so I started the festival because I had a film that did quite well in 1999, 2000. it played about 50 festivals. It was at the time the most successful gay-themed short film to play. It did great. But I was really frustrated by film festivals. And too many festivals to me were about money and parties and sponsors, and they weren't about films and filmmakers. And since I made a short, they definitely weren't about me. And I found that really disheartening. And so I went to one festival that was sort of the complete opposite of the rest. And it was the Ashland Independent Film Festival. It was their first year. And maybe it's because they didn't know what they were doing. And maybe because it was like the first festival after 9/11 that, so people could finally be together. And there was that sort of 9/11 afterglow that it was magical. And when I came back to DC, I turned to a friend of mine and I said, listen, I don't know how to run a film festival, but I know what it should be in my mind. And so I want to create something that's about films and filmmakers. And if we do that right, everything else will fall into place. The money, the sponsors, the parties, all that other stuff will happen. But I want to create an event about filmmakers and films. And so I had no idea what we were doing. The first year was, a crapshoot. We showed 33 films and 3 screenings. I was lucky. I had a friend who works at the Washington Post who mentioned it in the weekend section, and we sold out all of the shows. And it just kicked off a very successful event that I grew. I left that after probably about 12 years because I had grown tired and I wanted to do other things and start working with other festivals. But we had grown it to be one of the largest short film festivals on the East Coast and in the country. So I'm very proud of that work. And I'm very proud that we were able to elevate the importance of short films, not just to DC audiences, but to an international audience.
Well, that's fantastic. I wanted to talk a little bit about, first say, congratulations. You were Filmmaker of the Month for November by the DC Film Office. And I know you were interviewed by the DC Radio, but it is a huge deal, especially because of our organization, Women in Film and Video. So to be named that, tell us about that. How did that come about?
After shutdown, I had nothing to do. I was a consultant for film festivals around the world, and all of a sudden, no one needed film festival consult or the type I was doing. Getting people to go digital was easy, but the other stuff I was doing wasn't necessary, and I had nothing to do. And so a few of my friends sort of conspired. They knew the curators of an upcoming exhibition about Alma Thomas and convinced them that they should do a film about her to go with this traveling exhibition. And then tapped me to make the film. And I said, well, this is great. I haven't produced a film in 20 years, but I'm sure I can do this. I just can't direct it. I need to find the right director. And that sort of got me off on the path. And I loved every minute of it. I forgot how much I enjoy producing. And of course, producing a story about such an incredible woman with such a incredible, full, rich life, not just as an artist and not just as an African-American woman, but as a Washingtonian, was just fascinating. And I completely fell in love with Miss Thomas, as did everyone else who worked on the film. It was a pleasure and an honor to make that film. We made it specifically for this traveling exhibition, so we knew it was going to be seen by hundreds of thousands of people as they saw this exhibition. The festival circuit to me was sort of an afterthought. I figured I would throw it to some festivals, especially to some festivals of friends. It was picked up. It's now, I think, scheduled for 33 festivals. It's won about 4 or 5. It's exciting. I have talks with an educational distributor next week and a possible PBS. And so the film it just took off like crazy. And I think it's the right story at the right time. That's 90% of filmmaking is right story, right time, and so it's been a fun journey. I'm looking forward to finding another project to sink my teeth into like that.
That's fantastic. One of the things that you talked about, you said that it was easy to get people to go digital during the pandemic for these festivals. Why was it easy?
Well, it was easy in the sense that there was no other alternative. It was that or cancel. And the tools were there. People just were reluctant to use it. I've been espousing for a decade or more that digital has to be part of the festival experience. People are like, no, it's not the same. I'm like, no, of course it's not the same, but it doesn't have to be the same. And I still think moving forward, digital is going to be an important aspect for film festivals, because I think that festivals will be able to program specific films to be shown in a theater and specific films to be shown online, because they could probably bring a certain type of audience to a theater and another type of audience to watch online. And just because your film is selected to play online only doesn't mean it's less than any other film. It just means that festival thinks that they can find the right audience for it. Just like in the past when I used to get complaints all the time. How could you program a film to play Sunday morning at 9 a.m.? Who's going to 9 a.m. on a Sunday? And I said, you'd be surprised how full that theater is, right? You made a film that's for an older audience. They're there. They've already been up since 4:30. They're there at the theater. Like, it's mid-afternoon for them. And filmmakers don't get that. That, you have to trust programmers. They know what they're doing. They know when to program films and what theaters, et cetera. And to me, digital is just another theater, and about picking the right films to play in that specific medium. I think watching films online it's a godsend. It allows you to see many more films than you were ever able to see before. Yes, there's a little bit of overload, and yes, the experience isn't the same. You can pause it whenever you want and go to the bathroom and get some more chips and walk the dog. And I get it. But you know what? That's how you're consuming media anyway. That's how you're watching series on Netflix, and that's how you're watching live television. So, this idea of you have to be in a dark, massive room with a huge screen, I think is a fallacy. And I think that, yes, that's what we want. That's the romanticism of filmmaking. But the realities are 99% of the people who watch your film are going to watch it on a small screen or a screen that you think is inappropriate. So you better make sure that whatever you're shooting looks good that way.
Oh, so you have to imagine it as a big screen, but also on the small screen as well for a variety of audiences.
Right.
Yeah, no, it makes a big difference, especially when the fact that there's not that many theaters. I'm a native Washingtonian as well, but I moved to New York and lived in New York for 20 years. And when I came back, there was to DC, as you know, probably in New York, there's, you can go see an independent film on the East Side, West Side, Uptown, Downtown, the East Village, Greenwich Village, So here in DC, there was not as many. And now there's even fewer places to go see independent films. Right. So I think having things online can get that more people can get that distribution out there.
Yeah, I think that the way we're consuming media in general has changed. And I think that obviously the younger you are, that shift is even greater. I mean, I have nieces and nephews who are, 18 to 22 who might go to a movie theater twice a year. Like, it's just not in their wheelhouse to go to a movie theater, which I find incredulous because when I was, a teenager, we were at the movies every Friday night. So it's, times have changed. They rather watch, they rather consume media on their phones or on their computers or with, or watching with friends remotely. The way it's consumed is different. And I think that a lot of, especially older filmmakers, don't understand that and to them, it's this gold standard of big screen. And that's not a reality anymore. It just isn't.
But you've been to a lot of film festivals over the years. Is there one that was a favorite of yours, or you had a great time? That anything you want to share with us?
Oh, I've been to hundreds of film festivals. I don't necessarily have a favorite anymore. I like festivals in which I feel like they're reaching out to filmmakers and that their event is for filmmakers and that they're doing everything they can to get filmmakers to meet one another and to work together. It's funny. The greatest compliment I ever got for DC Shorts, and I got it a few times, is when a filmmaker would call me years later and say, "Hey, I have a new film for you. Do you remember that year I was there? I met this other filmmaker. Well, we became like best buddies, and now we've made like 3 films together. We want you to show this film." To me, that's when I start to cry, because to me, that's when I know my job is done, that I have brought filmmakers together to work together, to find their tribe, and to make the films that they want to make. And I think that festivals and events that do that are the huge winners. The ones that are concentrating on sponsors and parties, yes, it's flashy and celebrity is lovely, but having a celebrity at the festival doesn't make it great, at least not to me. It might make it to someone else who that's what their priority is. But my priority is for filmmakers to interact and build a community. And so any festival that does that, to me, is a winner.
Any other words of wisdom for people looking to enter film festivals or at the film festival? Any other advice that you can offer?
The big one is don't rush it and do the research. And, your film has a much greater shelf life than you think. I know everyone thinks that, my film is, I got 6 months on the festival circuit. You've got 12 to 18 months. You have some time. And maybe your film just isn't right for that festival this year. Maybe it's right for it next year. But again, it's really about understanding your film and who it's for who it's really for, and then looking at festivals and who are they really for. And when you find that they overlap, that's when you have a really good chance of getting. You know, if you've made a slasher film and you're trying to get into a festival that's never showed a slasher film before, you know, you don't have a chance in hell, right? But if you make a really heartwarming story about an elderly couple and you want to get into a festival and that their audience is all over, are mostly 55, 60 plus, then that's probably a really good fit for you. Films about young people are really hard to program because a lot of festivals are not geared towards younger audiences and won't get those audiences in, and their older audiences won't understand the film or appreciate it as much. Some festivals are different than others, but in general, I think that's a good rule. I think it's really important before you put pen to paper to really think about that market, who your film is for, and is your story right for now? I'm warning everyone now, if you're making a pandemic film or a film about life during COVID, forget about it. Programmers don't want to see them. There's already thousands of them flooding the channels. And again, we can show audiences one or two in a festival, but we can't show them a lot more than that. And so, to me, that's a film for like 5 years, 10 years from now, but that's not a film for now, right? I get it. You would need to make it. It's a personal thing. You got to get it off your chest. We all went through this experience. I completely understand, but it's not a marketable film at this point. Festivals are trying to program films that relate to their audiences and will bring their audiences in, especially now that audiences are reluctant to go back to theaters. It's really about finding films that will make them want to go to a theater and see it. So take your time and do that research. And if you need to bring in a festival consultant, bring in a festival consultant. Some are really great, some not so good. You really need to look at their track record. But there's a lot of work. Just as much work goes into the festival and distribution aspect of it as it does writing and pre-production and production. It's not an afterthought. It's a big integral part of the process. And if you aren't treating it like such and budgeting for it as such, then you are really shortchanging yourself.
Jon, thank you so much. This has been wonderful chatting with you. And to contact Jon, go to www.realplan.com. And to learn more about his recent documentary, go to www.missalmathomas.com.
That's right. Watch the film. It's great. You're going to love it. You're going to fall in love with her. Just completely fall in love with her.
Thank you for listening to Media and Monuments, a service of Women in Film and Video in Washington, D.C. Please remember to review, rate, and subscribe wherever you listen to this podcast. For more information about WIFF, please visit our website at WIF as in Frank, V as in Victor.org.